This is our last one for World Water Month, and we're just really grateful to be here and just talk to you today about water.
Thanks. Michael, would you like to say something?
Good afternoon. My name is Michael Emmanuel. I am, you could say, I'm sort of running or managing the technical aspects of these events, at least for the time being. I think future events, I'll be more of a side character in this entire in these events. But yes, I have been running the previous events for World Water Month and October Energy Month. If anybody was here for those, um, and I am a project assistant for the Hazard Mitigation and Resilience Plan. And we're just collaborating with our partners over at the Caribbean Green Technology Center. And I have tuned into, intuitively, I've tuned into all the seminars. They have been very informative and very good. I love the graphic design that has been done for all of these events and all the presentations that were done. Those were great. And I'm looking forward to this. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Thank you. And so we also have Shaquille and Hugh. I apologize if I got any names wrong. Would any of you like to introduce yourself? If you don't want to turn on your video, that's fine. And also you can just write in the chat. Oh. Can you say that again, please?
Hey, greetings. My name is Shaquille Spring, and I'm from the office of Senator Carla Joseph, and I'm just sitting in. Thank you.
And which island are you from?
St. Thomas.
Nice. And I see someone just joined. So we are just introducing ourselves, kind of where we're checking in from, like which island we're from, and if we've lived anywhere else, especially if we've lived there long enough to know how water is in that other place. And maybe if you've attended any of the other CGTC Water Month seminars.
Well, I'll try. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we hear you.
Okay, my name is Brian and I live on St. Croix. I have lived here for about a little over 6 years, and we live off a cistern. We've been doing very well this year. Our cistern's been near overflowing for the last several months, really, until maybe this last month. But certainly the availability of water is of interest to us and to our neighbors and friends. So.
Thanks, Brian. And I think there's a few people who haven't introduced themselves yet. They would like to. Also, feel free, if you are not in a space where you can talk, you can just write in the chat so we can all see.
Hey, how you guys doing? I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I see here that you said the recording says live on Facebook. Do you know how someone can find you on Facebook? What's the name of the platform?
I'll refer to Michael for the answer.
Hi, Mr. Springer. Yes, you can either search USVI Hazard Mitigation Plan on Facebook or Caribbean Green Technology Center. Either one of those, they're live on both pages.
Great. Maybe we can put the link in the chat or something.
Yeah, let me do that. I'll put both right now.
Great. Well, I think that when it hits the hour, then we'll have a lot more people. So we will get to hear from a lot of people, and then we can hopefully maybe 5 minutes in kind of start going through some of the topics that we want to touch on today. So yeah, if anyone who hasn't introduced themselves yet wants to say something, please do. But yeah.
But I took a test the other day.
Hello, Christina. Hi to those who just joined. We're just giving a quick introduction. So kind of like who you are, which island you're from, and if you've attended any of the other Water Month webinars, something new that you learned.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'll jump in. Hi, my name's Mary Vargo. I live on St. John. I own a company called Waterworks, and we specialize in the sales, maintenance, servicing, installation of residential water filtration systems, and cistern cleaning, cistern recoating, and swimming pool maintenance. So I did participate, I listened in on one of the other sessions that you had and learned about what Nimon Bondurant's doing with his filtration technology.
Nice, thank you. So for those who joined, we're just giving quick introductions. So you know who you are, which island you're from, and if you've attended any of the past CGTC seminars, something new or interesting that you learned. So.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Craig. I'm the director for the Caribbean Green Technology Center. Very glad that you took the time to meet with us today.
Thank you. And also, if you don't want to talk or can't be like talk, can't show the video right now, you can also use the chat to introduce yourself. But we'd love to hear from you.
Hello, I'm Michael Morgan. I work at UVI St. Croix. I'm a forester.
Thanks, Michael. So Christina, Hugh, Len, Andrew, if you just want to introduce yourself.
And Christina Chalnes, University of the Virgin Islands, Green Technology.
Thanks, Christina.
Hi, good afternoon. This is Len Wright. I'm a subject matter expert with Witt O'Brien's. I've been working for about a year and a half on various water issues with the Virgin Islands with respect to the hurricane recovery effort, and really interested in the integration and some of the One Water solutions that are a lot of potential in the Virgin Islands with respect to infrastructure and water use and needs. In particular, I attended, I think the seminar 2 seminars ago about drought, and was fascinated by the potential of wastewater reuse that was mentioned. I think there's a lot of potential there, and I'm always looking for opportunities to enhance some of the aspects of stormwater runoff as well. So really excited to hear what the speakers have on tap for today.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't introduced themselves yet?
Good afternoon. This is Andrew Thorley. I work with Tetra Tech and the Virgin Islands Housing Finance Authority on the CDBG mitigation action plan, and have been residing in the Virgin Islands for some time. And I'm pleased to be part of this. I also was on the drought call and some of the engineering calls that we've had recently, and I'm really pleased to be part of the discussion today.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to introduce themselves? I think we have got mostly everyone here has said something. Well, I think that most people missed my introduction, so I'll just go again. My name's Ariel Stoltz, and I work at the Caribbean Green Technology Center at UVI. And kind of the goal of this webinar, or it's more of a conversation really, is to talk about water in the Virgin Islands and kind of get the viewpoints from people who are living there or working there, and see how water in the Virgin Islands might be different from other places, and kind of just, yeah, start the conversation and bring up different topics. So we have a few topics, but we're planning to go with the flow. So see which topics are most interesting to people and what people want to discuss more about. And so one of our expected outcomes is that with this information about like what people are interested in, we can sort of see the gaps in people's knowledge or places where more information can be found, more data can be gathered, and fill that gap at the Caribbean Green Technology Center. And so we hope that, yeah, this conversation can lead to more things. So yeah, I think a few people just joined in. So if they could just quickly introduce themselves, kind of, you know, who you are, which island you are from, and if you've attended any of the past webinars, something new or interesting that you learned. I guess no one else wants to introduce themselves. You can also type it in the chat. Yeah, so Herbert Quintero and Lev Horodaisk, he haven't introduced themselves, and also R. Smith. So if you guys would like to introduce yourself or type in the chat, that would be great, so we can get a feel of like who's in the room.
Good afternoon. I'm Herbert Quintero. I'm with the University of the Virgin Islands, assistant professor of aquaculture.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm Lev Hordisky. I'm visiting assistant professor of physics at the University of Virgin Islands, and I'm on St. Thomas.
Okay, and last, I am Renell Smith. I am a assistant professor in the School of Business and teach information systems classes. And always interested in learning more about how we can get better water quality.
Awesome. And Bill or Sarai, would you like to quickly introduce yourself, kind of which island you're from, and either if you've attended any of the past webinars, something interesting you learned, or it seems people are also saying like what they're most interested in about this topic of water.
Good morning, I'm Bill, and I live on St. Thomas, and I'm hoping to figure out how to reliably have cistern water for drinking.
Nice.
Good day, my name is Sarah Hutchinson, and I joined this webinar today because I'm currently doing a course about climate change and adaptation and mitigation measures, and I just wanted to gain some more knowledge about what can be done or is being done on St. Thomas or in the VI. But I live in St. Kitts.
Okay, thanks, Sarai. So I think I see a few people also typed in the chat. So Hugh Atherley from Barbados, and that this is their first webinar. So thank you. I think we can go ahead and get started, Michael, with our first poll question. So do you have a cistern in your house? Yes or no?
Yes, I have a cistern in my house.
I think that we will maybe, yeah, we'll see what the answer is, but I'm pretty sure we know.
Are you waiting for me or did I answer?
No, I think, okay, so we have the results. So about 80% of people said yes to having a cistern in their house, whereas 20% said no. This is kind of expected that most people have a cistern because about like 90% of Virgin Islanders kind of depend on cisterns. Even some people have a cistern while connected to WAPA water. So it kind of has that bit of resilience where you have one option, and if that doesn't work, you have another option as well. So I was wondering, yeah, if people who maybe have cisterns want to share a bit about kind of like, do you think it's a good thing or a bad thing that so many people in the Virgin Islands depend on rainwater harvesting?
I think it's a good thing because WAPA was giving me bills of $700 a month when I don't even own a pool. Where I'm also connected to WAPA water as well. I just shut that off.
So you have both. You have cistern and WAPA water.
Yes. Or at least have the option to have both.
Yeah, so this is like, you know, if something happens to your cistern, then there's another option, or if something happens with WAPA, or like you said, if it's more expensive, you would still have the option of the cistern. So I think this is a very common thing in the Virgin Islands. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any comments about rainwater harvesting and how their experiences with it. Also, you could turn on your videos so we can see you.
Hi, this is Greg. I think rainwater harvesting is great, but a few weeks ago, my pump blew up, and it took me a whole day to fix and replace the pump. And luckily, I knew how to do it because initially I wanted to reach out to a plumber, and reaching out to a plumber on Sunday at 10 in the morning or at 4 in the afternoon, no answers. So I had water at the end of the day, so I went a whole day without, water. But I was glad that I fixed it myself, but I'm not sure if everybody can fix it themselves. So there is a long-term maintenance cost associated with owning a system, and sometimes it's nice to be on WAPA. But I understand from the previous person that we get surprise bill from WAPA, so I don't know.
Yeah. Does anyone who like answered to no to having a cistern want to comment about like how that is being in the, or maybe they're not in the Virgin Islands, that's why they answered no.
Hey, so I'm someone that doesn't have a water system, and relying on WAPA is its own trouble. But we do for I guess is that we live in a Virgin Islands where it's prone to hurricanes. So I always have in my mind to be prepared for other solutions and don't be dependent on just one solution.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, that like it's good to have multiple options, and like having a cistern is that extra option. So nobody brought this up yet, but like one of the key factors of rainwater harvesting is rain. And one of our first webinars was about drought and the impacts of drought, and maybe even right now in these months, drought is kind of more of an issue. And so what do people think about that with having a cistern?
That's a great question. And honestly, I was gonna mention that, and recently it's funny because I do have a cistern in my home, and since we're currently in a drought phase, cisterns rely on rain. And since it's currently hasn't been raining, I had to contact different water trucks or water companies to get water. And as a result, if you don't have water in your cistern, your pump could constantly run, which Greg brought up. If you don't know how to fix the pump or if you don't know how to turn it off in time, it could bring to additional expenses. So to answer that question, I would say that cisterns are definitely beneficial, but when it comes to drought and everything, you have to make sure that you have a constant amount of water in your cistern and make sure you conserve the water throughout your household, especially with the number of people in your household, to make sure that water can last for an extended amount of time.
Yeah, I think that's like water conservation. Does anyone find that they maybe conserve water differently at different times of the year, just based on the rain?
We certainly do. One thing that we do year round though is we capture our water, our gray water from our washing machine, and we use that to water our plants. And so far that's worked out very well. But we also, we don't waste water just because we are very conscious of the fact that it could become not available, for if we have a drought for an extended period. And we live east on St. Croix, so we don't get as much rain as others might farther west of us. So conservation is always kind of on our mind.
I find that that's the case for me too. I have a home in Texas that I visit with some regularity as well. And I find that when I'm here, I'm much more conscious, although I think I'm pretty conscientious anyway, about the amount of water that I use. I take much shorter showers. I use a lot less water here whenever possible to clean dishes or do those kinds of things, simply because the water conservation aspect really is a key part of day to day. And I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing.
I think we're a lot more connected to water because we know where it comes from. I mean, we know when it rains that it's filling our cistern directly. And so there's this connection that's not always there when it's just, whenever you turn the pipe on, there's going to be water. So I think that this might be a reason why water conservation is kind of ingrained in a lot of people's lives here in the Virgin Islands. I don't know if anyone agrees or disagrees.
I would add one more thing, especially during the hurricanes. I remember a specific time when the current currently went out, and for those who need current to rely on water or have that set up in their homes, I remember when my current was out, the water systems and water pumps were completely off. So having that opportunity to find alternative methods of using water, preserving water, especially during the hurricanes, when what I experienced was something that definitely taught me a lot about conserving water during that period.
Yeah, definitely. I think we all have probably part of our hurricane preparation checklist. Water is on there, and making sure that you have access to it, and understanding maybe where your cistern is located so you can get the water out of it if needed. All those things.
Yeah, getting understanding where the cistern is located is kind of interesting. I've had many occasions discussing with friends where they didn't know where the cistern was located, especially when they are renting.
Do people here know where their cistern is located?
Yes. Yes, I spent 60 days pulling buckets out after the hurricane. That's by the name Aquarius, the water bearer. My sign, I should say.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone has final comments on rainwater harvesting and kind of, I think we kind of found that it's good to have multiple options and that that this helps in many situations. So like also understanding how to conserve water can be useful all the time, but also useful in hurricane times and when the power might be out. And so, yeah, and that rainwater harvesting makes us more connected to our water source. And so it's easier to kind of make, have that like connection and understand that, oh, it's not enough rain, I should conserve now because it's directly impacting where I get my water from. So yeah, I don't know if anyone has any final thoughts on this topic.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think, and I don't know if it's going to come up in your questions later, but it is a piece of technology. So there is a technological aspect that goes with rainwater harvesting and keeping it going. The pump, the tank, the gutters, the pipes. You know, initially I thought rainwater harvesting, and I think the first house I lived here, it was very simple. But you know, other houses, the systems get quite complex.
Yeah, thanks. I think that we can move on to the next poll question now about drinking water. So the question for those watching on Facebook was, would you drink the water from your cistern? And yeah, once enough people answered, then Michael will post the results.
Because of the other day she was feeling like there's so much work.
So the results are that about 78% of people said yes, they would drink the water from their cistern, whereas 22% said no. So before I comment on this, does anyone want to say something about why they answered what they did?
Yes, because I put in filters and a UV filter that you need to change them from time to time.
Yes, and I answered yes for this.
So it's yes, but with one caveat. Filter.
I agree with that. Wouldn't do it without the filters.
And I'll jump in here too. This is Mary from Waterworks. And this is, you know, for the 22% who said no, I'm curious to know why. And if it's because you don't have a filtration and UV disinfection system, or if you have one and you just don't know if it's working well. One thing that we are doing as a company is facilitating water quality testing too on a periodic basis so that people know their water is safe for drinking. And, you know, I have stories of, you know, someone who thought their UV filter, or sorry, UV lamp was working, hadn't changed the bulb since 2007. So there are things that have to be done periodically to make sure that they're maintained. And, you know, as a business, that's what we're aiming to do, is to help people maintain their systems to make sure that the water is safe.
And Mary, like, how often would you say that people need to like check these things?
So it's recommended for the sediment filters and sediment filters every 3 to 6 months, carbon black filters every 6 months. UV lamp every year, and then the quartz sleeve that surrounds the UV lamp every 2 years or as needed, because you can get scale build up on those. But it's different for every system, just depending on how often you are using the water, how dirty the cistern is to begin with. So that's another service that we provide, is keeping the cistern clean, you know, from the start, so that it doesn't tax the cartridges as much. But those are
Mary,
the standard numbers.
could you repeat what the last thing you said was for every 2 years?
The quartz sleeve. So it's like the glass sleeve that surrounds the UV bulb inside of that chamber, that houses the UV.
Oh, okay.
What are you doing?
Would people say that they change those things that often?
With the exception of that weave around the bulb, yes, we do that.
Yeah.
I would say also that we could really tell on our 75 micron filter, it shows the Sahara dust very clearly, and almost nothing gets through to the 25 micron filter, thankfully.
Yeah. Nice. And, oh, sorry, I see someone is about to talk. So I'm just gonna read some comments. So on Facebook, Christine said she would drink her water if she has filtration system. And somebody asked what size micron filters are suggested. So I guess, Brian, you just said a size for the micron filters, or a micron size. Yeah. Anyways, I was going to ask for someone who said no to drinking the water for the cistern, from their cistern. Why did you say that? Is it because of the lack of trust in filters, or do you have a filter and you just still don't drink it?
I was one of the individuals that said no to the question. And the reason why, I do have a filter, but I just haven't had the opportunity to get my cistern water checked. And I'm glad I was listening to the conversation, and I'm just glad what I need to do to just make sure the water quality and everything is good and safe to drink. So that's one of the reasons why I said no. But I'm definitely enjoying the conversation so far, because I'm taking notes.
Yeah, we have lots of experts here. So thanks everyone for sharing what I think. Yeah, people have a lot of experience from living in the islands for so long, and from having a cistern. And so we can definitely all learn from each other. What about the water from WAPA? Would you guys drink this water? Or is it the same you would want to filter?
Filtered.
So we also put it out as a poll question. For those on Facebook, you probably won't see it, but we're waiting for the responses now, and then we'll see what the results are.
You can just give it a few seconds.
So the results, Would you drink the water from WAPA? 37% said yes, and 63% said no. So I guess we can start with the majority. So why did people say no? I see Camille Mikhail commented in the chat. Maybe you want to expand on this.
So I do drink my cistern water, but I do drink WAPA water, but I do not like the taste because there is a taste with WAPA water. I try not to buy bottled water, so I try to drink anything that I think is safe to drink.
Yeah. And then Lev also commented that they don't know how the water is treated. And I see, yeah, a lot of people commented. I don't know if anyone wants to say like what they put in the chat out loud, or if anybody knows more about the treatment of water at WAPA.
This is Mary again. I can jump in just because I was researching this a little bit over the last year. And if you go to WAPA's website, you know, they have their consumer confidence report, which is like their water quality report that's required to be filed every year. And it's interesting that they still only have the 2019 report up for St. Thomas, St. John District, and not for St. Croix. But that is something that the EPA requires that they publish. So that's, you can find that on WAPA's website, and it gives the testing results, but it doesn't necessarily talk about the treatment methods. But if you wanted to learn about any contaminants that might have been found and the levels of what those are, WAPA should be able to provide you with that information.
Yeah.
But I agree. I mean, if you it's only to minimum standard. There's if you still notice an odor or a taste, then there's products like that can take that out. That typically it's like the activated charcoal or carbon that will improve odor and taste. But they have to get that water tested for pathogens. So in that way, it's safe to drink.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, so do most people here know how like WAPA gets its water in the first place?
Desalination.
Yeah, so they have like a desalination plant. So it has to like come from seawater to drinking water, and it goes through a ton of filtration and systems to get to that point. And it works really well. Like this is filtering out everything. And then after that, they also treat it. And then they send it to you. But like there is like, I guess it's kind of the personal preference of how it tastes or things like that. But in terms of safety, it should be safe to drink. But I can totally understand if it doesn't taste good, then you might not want to. I don't know if anyone else has comments, maybe from like the different islands. Yes, it's reverse osmosis for desalination.
Actually, I do have a comment with respect to WAPA. They may do a good job in terms of the water treatment and all that stuff. But my concern would be getting it to the homes. There can be problems with the pipes and all that stuff. That's why you should always have another filter there at your home to protect you.
That is a really good point. And a lot of the pipes can get old over time and start to break down, and this can be a problem for the water. And this happens in a lot of cities around the world, not just in the Virgin Islands.
Yeah, hi, this is Len. I was just going to make that comment that that's one of the things that we've been working on with Wood O'Brien's with respect to the WAPA distribution system, where the desalination plant is meeting standards, but then once it gets into the, like you said, the older pipes, which are ductile iron, one of the things about desalinated water is that it's fairly aggressive. It still has some corrosive abilities, some salts left in it. And so that reacting with the ductile iron can make for coloration problems and taste issues. So I think that's right on. It is definitely one of the things that we're looking at with with FEMA is getting, one of the objectives could be to get more plastic pipe, which does not have that corrosive ability and would greatly enhance water quality, at least to the level that it comes out of the treatment plant.
That's really useful information. Thank you so much. So any other comments on this topic?
Sorry, I just want to have a quick follow-up question, Len. So is there any sort of issue of reaction between desalinated water and the PVC pipe or any material?
That's a good point. Yeah, plastic pipe is inert, and with in the industry, both HDPE and potable water PVC pipe is non-corrosive, and that the issues with taste and odor and coloration really come from some of that older ductile iron pipe. And like I said, the water that comes out of a desalination meets health standards is corrosive still. And so that's where some of the issue could come from. There's other things in terms of operational that we're looking at in terms of water age in the distribution line in a system. There's various parts of St. Croix that have dead ends that have longer water age, and so the longer the water sits in the distribution system, the more chance it has to that coloration. And so there's various aspects of optimizing for water quality. For sure, pipe material is a big part of that, as well as some of the operational. So there's some of the things we're looking at are improvements with respect to tanks and looping. A loop of a pipe network helps with the water age in the system, and so we can move water more, and that also helps with disinfection. So generally water quality will improve when you decrease water age.
Thanks. And I guess while we're talking about water treatment, in the chat, Brian posted, what do people with cisterns do to treat their water? And I think this is a good question. And I also know Christina Chanas has some information about what you can do for treating your water in your cistern. So I don't know if anyone wants to comment what they're doing.
Hi, this is Christina. Just really quick. Some people use moringa seed to treat their cistern water. Some people use tilapia, and others will use frogs. It's kind of depends on the person, how they feel about the water culturally. Some people will treat with organic disinfectant that you can buy at Home Depot or other locations. Some people, depending upon the cistern size, will actually use bleach. Some people will actually empty their cisterns and have them cleaned by a cistern cleaning company. And at that time, oftentimes they will repair or reseal their cisterns.
So does anyone use any of those methods or something different?
I'm curious to know of the tilapia and frogs. How I'll do a little research on the moringa seed, but Christine, can you explain the tilapia and frogs as treatment methods? Just because I know that, they can also introduce bacteria into a cistern.
Right. I've actually interviewed several people across the territory, and we've done a survey on it. And in the dialogue, most people, the logic is, and I'm paraphrasing, but just to simplify it, if a frog or tilapia can live in the cistern, then it's got to be good to drink. That's pretty much the standard response. And when you ask about, well, the fish have to go potty, does that go into the, cistern water, then they'll say that maybe the sediment filter will get it out, but they're not concerned about that. The water is safe if the fish or the frog can live. So it just depends on you and your cultural values and, whether or not you believe that the disinfectants and or bleach, the organic or the bleach related disinfectant, is more harmful than the actual fish or frog itself.
One of the argument I heard about using tilapia and frogs is for mosquito control in terms of eating larvae. Because there is a bit of a balance between trying to, deal with mosquitoes and trying to deal with, well, I guess maybe not a balance. But I think the two main issues from a health point of view, from my point of view, are, the water quality and what's in the water, and then the fact that, water is breeding ground for mosquitoes.
So also, like, I don't know if anyone has comments on this. What are kind of the problems with using something like bleach? Like, what do people find? Why might people find that concerning?
I think oftentimes, this is Christina, I think oftentimes in the town hall discussions that we had, most people don't know exactly how much bleach to put in because they don't actually know the true size of their cistern. So maybe their home was handed down to them and their grandparents or parents built it and then they haven't lived in it or inherited it. And so they're skeptical of the potential contamination of the bleach itself or concerned about health related issues such as asthma. Because if you inhale bleach, you can have an asthma attack. So those are just some of the comments that we've received.
Does anyone else have any comments about like water treatment options that they use for their cisterns?
I read in a comment that, and sorry if you talked about it, but Mr. Hutchinson in St. Kitts is talking about the fact that most of their water comes from aquifers, but the chlorination differs from one place to another. I think from my understanding, putting bleach in the system is great, but it can present a lot of health risks in the long term if we put too much bleach in the system. And sort of, folks, if you can tell it, that's good. But I'm also wondering if that's not actually too much.
And I think, Michael, we have a question about if people know how big their cistern is or not. Maybe we can see, like, from this group, like, do people know? Because that was one of the points brought up, that it's kind of hard to know how much bleach to put in if you don't even know the size of your cistern. So maybe we can pull up that poll question.
So this is Camille again. In the meantime, speaking about the size of the cistern, we moved to a new home and there was nothing in any of the documents that actually told us about the size of the cistern. And I think we had to estimate it. We had to see how deep it was, how wide it was, et cetera, because we ended up having to use a little bit of chlorine to treat the water that had been sitting there for some time. This was after the storms. So I don't know how many people have had that, where they're in a place where they wish they knew the size of the cistern, but there is no document or no record of the size. And how would one go about estimating without draining and having someone go down and measure?
Yeah, I think that it's really hard to know. And so for the hazard mitigation plan, we were looking for information, if there's any information about cistern sizes on the island. And sometimes there is, sometimes there's not. So it's kind of hard to know if your house, like if it's recorded or not. And so, yeah, you kind of have to guess, and this can be dangerous if you're going to be pouring bleach in. I'll just read the results. So do you know how much water your cistern can hold? 35% of people said yes, but 65% said no. So the majority of people don't really know the size of their cistern. And also, how many days would a full cistern last if it didn't rain? So we have a range, most people said over 5 weeks. 71%, and then 18% said 2 to 4 weeks, and 12% said 1 to 2 weeks. So obviously this question is different because it depends how much water do you use, and how you're might be conserving water in a period when it's not raining. But yeah, I don't know if anyone wants to also comment about like knowing the size of their cistern.
So I had that question for one place I stayed. The best way I found was to use, so one of the ways to go outside of the house and just make the measurement on the outside, if you know where the cistern is located, because usually you can see the cistern, on the first floor, if you will. The problem I had when I was doing that was that the house that I was renting, the cistern was the first floor, the location of the cistern was basically 2 or 3 cisterns. So to understand where my portion of the cistern, the size, what I did was I waited during the rainy season. I took a very, very long stick from a tree, just not very thick, but just thin and very long, and just plunged it until I hit the bottom. And then I had the so that gives me the depth. And then I had the laser, like I think it's like $10, whatever. It's a laser measure that measures with laser, and so I can sort of hit the sides of the cistern from the top, from the opening of the cistern. From the hatch, I can hit the sides and then make the calculation. So I was able to take the width and the length with the laser measure, and then the depth with the stick. But you can
That's a creative way to solve it.
We can also take a tape to estimate it. You can go outside with a tape, but a laser is very, very useful because you can measure long distances. And I would say that, yeah. Just very quickly, sorry, because I spent some time like to know the depth of your cistern also, how much water you have. I think having a stick, that you think is the depth of your cistern is very handy, because you can just plunge it once in a while to know how much, water you have left in your cistern. So that's a cheap way to sort of monitor, how you're doing.
Some of the ways that we did that when we were doing the micro study with the Department of Health was actually with a tape measure. So we put a tape measure into the cistern to determine how full it was and then tried to do basic calculations at that level. We did also create a PVC pipe with, 3 foot, 5 foot, 8 foot, and then would put it in the cistern. But we realized that very quickly, if you had a large tape measure or, work-related tape measure, retractable, you could do it that way as well.
I think it seems like it should be easy because it's kind of just a box, but because it's most of the time or all of the time filled with water, and it's usually like under the house, it can be actually kind of hard to know right away. So yeah, I think that it's useful to know the size of your cistern. It's useful to have a way to measure it periodically so that you can kind of understand how you're doing in terms of like if you're gonna run out soon or if it's full. So yeah, I don't know if anyone else has comments in the chat. It said someone or Michael Morgan, I paid someone to clean my cistern and he couldn't tell me how big it was other than it's big and it took most of the week to drain it. And then other people mentioned that it's easy to calculate if you know the length, width, and depth, which maybe is hard to know. And then you can estimate close enough from that. So yeah.
I like the app, the development of the app. I don't know if we need an app, I think, but we can definitely provide guidance. But the thing though that I like last week, especially the tool that Nimon discussed, his water purifier, is that it comes with a pressure sensor. So you put a pressure sensor at the bottom of your cistern, and that way you always have a sense of how much water you have through time. And my understanding, because I don't have one of those, but my understanding is you have an app that sort of tells you how things are going through time.
Yeah, I think it could be helpful, but in terms of like also knowing how much water to use, like what do people do differently if they notice like, oh, it's really low? Does anyone change their water habits? Or like, I guess my question is, what water conservation practices do you do in your home that you can share with us so we can all like learn from each other for good practices? I know earlier on somebody mentioned reusing the water from their washing machine to water their plants.
I have a dishwasher. It saves a lot of water.
Good afternoon.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, good afternoon.
So what I do is I use my hydroponics. I use the water from my hydroponics, and so that it continually loops, uses those resources to grow the food, the lettuce in this particular matter, and also some other vegetables. That's one way. And of course, the gray water system you talked about before for watering the plants as well that are using it in the soil. So those are the things that I really appreciate. Great opportunity. Sorry, I'm a little delayed in joining the meeting.
That's fine. And then I see some comments in the chat. I don't know if anyone who commented wants to just say it, or else I can read it. So I'll give them a chance.
I'm intrigued by Mary Williams. How do you do that?
Okay, when I soap up and then I use the shower, and I have a plastic basin, and I rinse over the shower. I rinse over the basin. I don't catch it all, but I catch some, and I use that to flush the toilet.
I have a question for Jason.
Can you hear me?
Oh,
Hello?
go ahead. Go ahead.
Mike, did you want to ask a question?
No.
Oh, okay.
Hello?
I have a,
Can you hear me?
yes, Miss Celeste, go ahead.
Hello?
We can hear you.
You can hear me? All right. First, as far as the water and I always catch things. So I also use not only washing machine water, I also, for the plants, I like the water, the runoff water, because like I set out like barrels and stuff just to catch the water, because I'm in the rainforest, and so the water comes various times. And basically because now I had my cistern repaired recently, and the person who did it did not mix the right mix, for bonding. And so now I have like this sheet of film that comes up in my water all the time. So I have to actually catch rainwater to drink unless I buy water. So that's, I'm always, and even for my dogs, I'm always catching water. So there's always extra sources of water that you can filter out, learn to filter out, or just, all kind of buffaloes, pans, cans, whenever the water comes, just learn how to filter it. That's what I do. Just my interpretation of, or my contributions on how to catch water.
Yeah, thanks. That's yeah, I think that if you can like use the water that's already coming outside to water the plants already, like this is a way of like making sure you're using everything that the earth offers. Yeah, and I guess like just to wrap up, because we're almost coming up to the hour, I wanted to bring up like one more topic to kind of bring it home to the Virgin Islands a bit. And so I know at the beginning, somebody had mentioned that when they live in the Virgin Islands, they really kind of pay more attention to water conservation than when they have lived in other places. And so I was wondering if people think that these practices are part of like what our identity here in the Virgin Islands, and how you would define kind of our relationship with water and with the earth. Well, for me, oh, if someone wants to talk, sorry.
I was going to say, I do feel like it's part of our identity. When you leave, if you see people running the water, it kind of,
I'm not sure.
yeah, it kind of grates at you if you see someone leaving the water running it. And I think after having lived elsewhere and living here in the Virgin Islands, my relationship with water is different. How I think about the water running, I know that if I leave it running too long, it'll drain my cistern. That's very different from you open a pipe and there's water. So I don't know how children who grew up in the Virgin Islands, how they might feel about water having it be that big of a part of their identity the entire time. So I know Dara was going to speak. She might have a thought about that.
Yes, good afternoon. I think it's kind of hard for us to use a stereotype of ourselves or those who grew up in the Virgin Islands for this because there's so many different influences genealogically from your Caribbean ancestry, wherever you may be from. So it really just depends. I find that people who have roots more from islands like Dominica, in some places, St. Kitts, different things, they may have a better, more innate thought process and behavior pattern as it pertains to water conservation than those who were actually born here and don't have as much of the other Caribbean island influence. But it just really depends. So it's kind of hard to tell just in general. I was the only one in my family born here, for example. I remember water conservation after Hurricane Hugo, after Hurricane Marilyn, but I don't really recall it being that much of something that was ingrained in us growing up here outside of during those natural disaster times. Whereas I have other friends and colleagues who had more of their young growing up time in the other Caribbean islands, and it's different. And they have more of a consciousness about it. So it just really depends.
I have 3 levels of water in my house, and that's the clear water, the gray water, and the light gray water and the final gray water. And so the clear water is for drinking and watering and stuff, as we just spoke about. The medium gray water may be to rewash. Like I said, if I take water out the wash machine, or if it's some water from something left over from something else. And then the final gray water is either if I'm going to flush, if I need to flush the bathroom with it. So I always conserve water. And having grown up growing up in New York, but constantly all my life coming back and forth between St. Thomas and Tortola, even more, and I live on St. Croix now, but having grown up constantly going back and forth, I was always mindful, especially with my children, as they grew up, telling them, and still am, when I'm around them, and the one in the States especially, turn off the water, that type of stuff. So, and as far as the earth, there's and I'm not sure if I missed this, and Darryl, you may be able to say something about it. There's a plant that we use that we put in the water to help clean the water. When you were talking about the things to put in the water, beside Clorox, there's plants that we use also sometimes to.
Yeah, maybe if you can share what those are, that would be really great. Yeah, I don't know if anyone else has any comments about this. For me, growing up in the Virgin Islands, I think water conservation was always part of everything, and I didn't even notice it at all until going to the States for college, and like seeing my roommates and how they were treating, like brushing the teeth with the water on the entire time. And even like something like this, I was just like, why would you even do that? So it's something that maybe you don't even notice until you go somewhere else. And so I think that we do have a connection. Like, I remember that when it was raining, we would like do laundry because we knew that we'd get a lot of water. So we would have a lot of water. So there's like a connection that is not really happening everywhere else in the world, where they don't use this rainwater harvesting. There's kind of a bit of a disconnect. So I guess we have maybe time for one more comment, but then I'd like to finish and let you guys go.
I just want to say, this is a very interesting feature of living in the Virgin Islands. I grew up in Martinique, where when I was young, we were all on cistern. The house that I was in had actually 2 cisterns, quite big. Then maybe when I was, I don't know, less than 10, we got connected to a public water system. And it's only recently, the past, I would say 5 years, that since there's so many droughts, that last so long, there is a revival of cisterns in the lower Antilles, where people go back to traditions of the past. It's a very interesting situation or return of reuse of technologies, I guess. I also want to say that a lot of this information is very interesting, and I'm sure you close it, but we'll be using a lot of this information that we collected today in some sort of guidance document that we are planning on creating. But I'll tell more about this.
Yeah, thank you. First, thank you everyone for coming and listening and participating. And it was really great to hear from everyone. And I definitely learned a lot. I'm like taking notes and learning a lot from you guys. So thank you so much for that. Like Greg had kind of alluded to, at CGTC, after this month of webinars, then we plan to kind of use all this information, including the stuff that we talked about today, to create a resource guide for households for water management. And so I think we really kind of identified what are some of the topics that maybe people need to know more about, or what might be most useful for the home. And also we've learned a lot about some methods for different things, whether it's water conservation, water treatment, and also like cistern maintenance. We didn't get to talk about wastewater, a bit about wastewater reuse, but hopefully we'll also include stuff like that as well. So yeah, thank you so much for attending. And I just want to quickly put in the chat a survey for you guys to fill out to give us some feedback about how this and other webinars, if you attended it, went. And then, yeah, I guess that's gonna be all. So just please, I'll put the survey in the chat right now. So just fill it out, and then, yeah, I hope everyone has a great rest of their day. So.
Thanks, Ariel. Good job.
And watch out for future events that we will be organizing throughout the year for different events related to CGTC's activities.
Survey in the chat, please, yeah, it shouldn't take very long. And thank you everyone so much for coming.
Thank you.